开的门票，要理想背景，马丁路德的梦也曾有人笑，他能跑能跳，但因他的肤色，什么难听的称号都有人叫，无法改变这个地方，起码不被改变。对家庭心存感谢，但坏条子心存歹念。你也看过他们嘴脸，拿着枪对人威胁，他们说黑人是乱源，对社会造成危险。大学毕业，决定出国去打直篮，但怎么也摆脱不掉糟糕的治安。安身立命之处在哪？他寻找港湾，决定下个目的地，他飞往台湾。第17个英文字母，那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。第17个英文字母，那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。
我是戴维斯，我是戴晚郎。
爱上这个小岛，因为人们尊重彼此。爱上这个小岛，少有肤色的歧视。当外援帮球队赢得冠军，不止一次，他不再感到迷失，不再因外貌被敌视。一份归属感，规划台湾是他的意思。2013亚锦赛，国家队写入历史。无法禁止他纵横球场，敌对都头大，对他的疑问用行动回应，一切都容纳。对篮筐轰炸 ，He can't be stopped。无价的资产又 He can't be shot。He is a big picture that can't be cropped。用操场的臂展拥抱回馈这个社会。架杠给台湾人，不许怀疑，就是这位为了团队的荣耀，他从不轻言撤退。就算满身是伤，他咬着牙撑着。这里是他的家，不是场面话，真的。第17个英文字母。那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。第17个英文字母，那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。
We've come a long way, gave them inspiration to, to want to stick their chest out and be proud of being Taiwanese. 我是戴维斯，我是戴晚郎。
来自 Sunshine State， 但那里并不太平，严格我的贺治安从来都不太行。拿着篮球 ，trying to stay away from troubles， work on his game， 就算有的时候 struggles， 基本上 no days off。那是他离开的门票，要理想背景，马丁路德的梦也曾有人笑，他能跑能跳，但因他的肤色，什么难听的称号都有人叫，无法改变这个地方，起码不被改变。对家庭心存感谢，但坏条子心存歹念。你也看过他们嘴脸，拿着枪对人威胁，他们说黑人是乱源，对社会造成危险。大学毕业，决定出国去打直篮，但怎么也摆脱不掉糟糕的治安。安身立命之处在哪？他寻找港湾，决定下个目的地，他飞往台湾。第17个英文字母，那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。第17个英文字母，那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。
我是戴维斯，我是戴晚郎。
爱上这个小岛，因为人们尊重彼此。爱上这个小岛，少有肤色的歧视。当外援帮球队赢得冠军，不止一次，他不再感到迷失，不再因外貌被敌视。一份归属感，规划台湾是他的意思。2013亚锦赛，国家队写入历史。无法禁止他纵横球场，敌对都头大，对他的疑问用行动回应，一切都容纳。对篮筐轰炸 ，He can't be stopped。无价的资产又 He can't be shot。He is a big picture that can't be cropped。用操场的臂展拥抱回馈这个社会。架杠给台湾人，不许怀疑，就是这位为了团队的荣耀，他从不轻言撤退。就算满身是伤，他咬着牙撑着。这里是他的家，不是场面话，真的。第17个英文字母，那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。第17个英文字母，那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。
We've come a long way, gave them inspiration to, to want to stick their chest out and be proud of being Taiwanese. 我是戴维斯，我是戴晚郎。
来自 Sunshine State， 但那里并不太平。严格我的贺治安从来都不太行。拿着篮球 ，trying to stay away from troubles，work on his game。就算有的时候 struggles， 基本上 no days off。那是他离开的门票。要理想背景，马丁路德的梦也曾有人笑。他能跑能跳，但因他的肤色，什么难听的称号都有人叫。无法改变这个地方，起码不被改变。对家庭心存感谢，但坏条子心存歹念。你也看过他们嘴脸，拿着枪对人威胁。他们说黑人是乱源，对社会造成危险。大学毕业，决定出国去打直篮，但怎么也摆脱不掉糟糕的治安。安身立命之处在哪？他寻找港湾，决定下个目的地，他飞往台湾。第17个英文字母，那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。第17个英文字母，那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。
我是戴维斯，我是戴晚郎。
爱上这个小岛，因为人们尊重彼此。爱上这个小岛，少有肤色的歧视。当外援帮球队赢得冠军，不止一次，他不再感到迷失，不再因外貌被敌视。一份归属感，规划台湾是他的意思。2013亚锦赛，国家队写入历史。无法进食，他纵横球场，敌对都头大。对他的疑问用行动回应，一切都容纳。对篮筐轰炸 ，He can't be stopped。无价的资产，yo he can't be shot。He is a big picture that can't be cropped。用操场的臂展拥抱回馈这个社会。架杠台湾人不许怀疑，就是这位为了团队的荣耀，他从不轻言撤退。就算满身是伤，他咬着牙撑着。这里是他的家，不是场面话，真的。第17个英文字母。那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。第17个英文字母，那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。
We've come a long way, gave them inspiration to, to want to stick their chest out and be proud of being Taiwanese. 我是戴维斯，我是戴晚郎。
来自 Sunshine State， 但那里并不太平。严格我的贺治安从来都不太行。拿着篮球 ，trying to stay away from troubles，work on his game。就算有的时候 struggles， 基本上 no days off。那是他离开的门票。要理想背景，马丁路德的梦也曾有人笑。他能跑能跳，但因他的肤色，什么难听的称号都有人叫。无法改变这个地方，起码不被改变。对家庭心存感谢，但坏条子心存歹念。你也看过他们嘴脸，拿着枪对人威胁。他们说黑人是乱源，对社会造成危险。大学毕业，决定出国去打直篮，但怎么也摆脱不掉糟糕的治安。安身立命之处在哪？他寻找港湾，决定下个目的地，他飞往台湾。第17个英文字母，那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。第17个英文字母，那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。
我是戴维斯，我是戴晚郎。
爱上这个小岛，因为人们尊重彼此。爱上这个小岛，少有肤色的歧视。当外援帮球队赢得冠军，不止一次，他不再感到迷失，不再因外貌被敌视。一份归属感，规划台湾是他的意思。2013亚锦赛，国家队写入历史。无法进食，他纵横球场，敌对都头大。对他的疑问用行动回应，一切都容纳。对篮筐轰炸 ，He can't be stopped。无价的资产，yo he can't be shot。He is a big picture that can't be cropped。用操场的臂展拥抱回馈这个社会。架杠台湾人不许怀疑，就是这位为了团队的荣耀，他从不轻言撤退。就算满身是伤，他咬着牙撑着。这里是他的家，不是场面话，真的。第17个英文字母，那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。第17个英文字母，那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。
inspiration to, to want to stick their chest out and be proud of being Taiwanese. 我是戴伟斯，我是戴婉郎，
来自 Sunshine State， 但那里并不太平，严格我的贺治安从来都不太行。拿着篮球 ，trying to stay away from troubles， work on his game， 就算有的时候 struggles， 基本上 no days off。那是他离开的门票，要理想背景，马丁路德的梦也曾有人笑。他能跑能跳，但因他的肤色，什么难听的称号都有人叫。无法改变这个地方，起码不被改变。对家庭心存感谢，但坏条子心存歹念。你也看过他们嘴脸，拿着枪对人威胁。他们说黑人是乱源，对社会造成危险。大学毕业，决定出国去打直篮，但怎么也摆脱不掉糟糕的治安。安身立命之处在哪？他寻找港湾，决定下个目的地，他飞往台湾。第17个英文字母，那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。第17个英文字母，那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。
我是戴伟斯，我是戴婉郎。
爱上这个小岛，因为人们尊重彼此。爱上这个小岛，少有肤色的歧视。当外援帮球队赢得冠军，不止一次，他不再感到迷失，不再因外貌被敌视。一份归属感，规划台湾是他的意思。2013亚锦赛，国家队写入历史。无法禁止，他纵横球场，敌对都头大。对他的疑问用行动回应，一切都容纳。对篮筐轰炸 ，He can't be stopped。无价的资产又 He can't be shot。He is a big picture that can't be cropped。用操场的臂展拥抱回馈这个社会。架杠给台湾人，不许怀疑，就是这位为了团队的荣耀，他从不轻言撤退。就算满身是伤，他咬着牙撑着。这里是他的家，不是场面话，真的。第17个英文字母。那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。第17个英文字母，那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。
We've come a long way, gave them inspiration to, to want to stick their chest out and be proud of being Taiwanese. 我是戴伟斯，我是戴婉郎，
来自 Sunshine State， 但那里并不太平，严格我的贺治安从来都不太行。拿着篮球 ，trying to stay away from troubles， work on his game， 就算有的时候 struggles， 基本上 no days off。那是他离开的门票，要理想背景，马丁路德的梦也曾有人笑。他能跑能跳，但因他的肤色，什么难听的称号都有人叫。无法改变这个地方，起码不被改变。对家庭心存感谢，但坏条子心存歹念。你也看过他们嘴脸，拿着枪对人威胁。他们说黑人是乱源，对社会造成危险。大学毕业，决定出国去打直篮，但怎么也摆脱不掉糟糕的治安。安身立命之处在哪？他寻找港湾，决定下个目的地，他飞往台湾。第17个英文字母，那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。第17个英文字母，那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。
我是戴伟斯，我是戴婉郎。
爱上这个小岛，因为人们尊重彼此。爱上这个小岛，少有肤色的歧视。当外援帮球队赢得冠军，不止一次，他不再感到迷失，不再因外貌被敌视。一份归属感，规划台湾是他的意思。2013亚锦赛，国家队写入历史。无法禁止，他纵横球场，敌对都头大。对他的疑问用行动回应，一切都容纳。对篮筐轰炸 ，He can't be stopped。无价的资产又 He can't be shot。He is a big picture that can't be cropped。用操场的臂展拥抱回馈这个社会。架杠给台湾人，不许怀疑，就是这位为了团队的荣耀，他从不轻言撤退。就算满身是伤，他咬着牙撑着。这里是他的家，不是场面话，真的。第17个英文字母。那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。第17个英文字母，那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。
inspiration to, to want to stick their chest out and be proud of being Taiwanese. 我是戴维斯，我是戴王郎，
来自 Sunshine State， 但那里并不太平，严格我的贺治安从来都不太行。拿着篮球 ，trying to stay away from troubles， work on his game， 就算有的时候 struggles， 基本上 no days off。那是他离开的门票，要理想背景，马丁路德的梦也曾有人笑，他能跑能跳，但因他的肤色，什么难听的称号都有人叫，无法改变这个地方，起码不被改变。对家庭心存感谢，但坏条子心存歹念。你也看过他们嘴脸，拿着枪对人威胁，他们说黑人是乱源，对社会造成危险。大学毕业，决定出国去打直篮，但怎么也摆脱不掉糟糕的治安。安身立命之处在哪？他寻找港湾，决定下个目的地，他飞往台湾。第17个英文字母，那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。第17个英文字母，那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。
我是戴维斯，我是戴王郎。
爱上这个小岛，因为人们尊重彼此。爱上这个小岛，少有肤色的歧视。当外援帮球队赢得冠军，不止一次，他不再感到迷失，不再因外貌被敌视。一份归属感，规划台湾是他的意思。2013亚锦赛，国家队写入历史。无法禁止他纵横球场，敌对都头大，对他的疑问用行动回应，一切都容纳。对篮筐轰炸 ，He can't be stopped。无价的姿态，Yo he can't be shot。He is a big picture that can't be cropped。用操场的臂展拥抱回馈这个社会。架杠给台湾人，不许怀疑，就是这位为了团队的荣耀，他从不轻言撤退。就算满身是伤，他咬着牙撑着。这里是他的家，不是场面话，真的。第17个英文字母。那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。第17个英文字母，那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。
We've come a long way, gave them inspiration to, to want to stick their chest out and be proud of being Taiwanese. 我是戴维斯，我是戴王郎，
来自 Sunshine State， 但那里并不太平，严格我的贺治安从来都不太行。拿着篮球 ，trying to stay away from troubles， work on his game， 就算有的时候 struggles， 基本上 no days off。那是他离开的门票，要理想背景，马丁路德的梦也曾有人笑，他能跑能跳，但因他的肤色，什么难听的称号都有人叫，无法改变这个地方，起码不被改变。对家庭心存感谢，但坏条子心存歹念。你也看过他们嘴脸，拿着枪对人威胁，他们说黑人是乱源，对社会造成危险。大学毕业，决定出国去打直篮，但怎么也摆脱不掉糟糕的治安。安身立命之处在哪？他寻找港湾，决定下个目的地，他飞往台湾。第17个英文字母，那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。第17个英文字母，那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。
我是戴维斯，我是戴王郎。
爱上这个小岛，因为人们尊重彼此。爱上这个小岛，少有肤色的歧视。当外援帮球队赢得冠军，不止一次，他不再感到迷失，不再因外貌被敌视。一份归属感，规划台湾是他的意思。2013亚锦赛，国家队写入历史。无法禁止他纵横球场，敌对都头大，对他的疑问。
Welcome to the AIT-TCA International Forum on Advancing Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Accessibility Values for All. Today's event is co-hosted by American Institute in Taiwan and Talent Circulation Alliance Program under the advice of Administration for Digital Industry at MODA. We're very happy to come up with today's forum to follow up on the Pride Ride on Saturday, this weekend, to keep continuing discussing about diversity and inclusion, these type of topics. And we hope that you can have a very fruitful discussion with our speaker and panelists today. First, before we start, let's welcome Mr. Luke Martins, the Cultural Affairs Officer at American Institute in Taiwan, to give us an opening remark.
Well, hello everyone. Thank you for braving the rain and the typhoon weather for coming today. DEIA is a very important topic for all of us in this room. Obviously, that's when we came together. For us, it's important at AIT. This is a policy that's not just international, it's domestic as well. We're putting it into our programming. It's a high priority for the Biden administration and for us at AIT. So these kind of conversations about how do we make this practical, because they're great ideas, including everybody no matter where they come from, coming together like this and finding ways that we can work together is really, really critical. There's some programming that we have right now. We have our Academy for Women Entrepreneurs. We have our Inspiring Women Entrepreneurs, and both of these programs we really targeted what are some areas in Taiwan where we can help these communities of people who need additional assistance. The truth is that DEIA is for all of us. It's ensuring that all of us are on the same platform, that all of us have the same rights, the same abilities and opportunities. And it's because of people like you coming alongside us, partners like TCA, Microsoft, Portico Media, Micron, and then luminaries like you as well that are coming here to really, all of us are standing together for something that is important for us as a society, but for us individually as well. So I'd like to thank all of you for coming. It's going to be a great conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mark, please. Thank you, Mark. Please remain on the stage because we're going to have a group photo with all the speakers and VIP. And next will be Mr. Quincy Davis, the professional basketball player at New Taipei Kings. Ms. Jessie Liu, Micron North Asia HR Senior Director. Mr. Dan Stevenson, Microsoft Teams Engineering Senior Director. Ms. Li Wang, AppWorks General Counsel and Head of Public Policy. Mr. Jay Lin, Gagaulala and Portico Media Founder and CEO. Mr. Patrick Bollett, AIT Economic Officer. Ms. Julian Lawler, AIT Assistant Cultural Affairs Officer. And Mr. Yuchen Zhang, III Digital Education Institute Vice President. Let's look at the camera before, in front of you.
Okay, from here. 3, 2, 1. Oh, okay, one more. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay, here. 3, 2, 1, 3. Okay. Clear. 3, 2, 1.
How about thumbs up? Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Now, this should be a very exciting moment to everyone right now. And we're very honored to be able to invite Mr. Hugh Davis to be our keynote speaker today. In 2013, Davis gave up his American citizenship to become a naturalized Taiwanese citizen to enable him to play for Taiwan's national team in international competition. He now plays for New Taipei Kings of P-Leagues Plus. Now let's welcome Hugh.
Hello, everyone. Hi. I don't know too much Mandarin. I apologize. Taiwan has made me very lazy with their encouragement to want to learn to speak English. So I apologize about that. I'll just say, 大家好. Yeah, so basically, like the introduction is, my name is Davis, Quincy Davis. I come here about 13 years ago, and I've been a Taiwanese citizen for the last 10 years. I think what's very amazing about this culture is that everybody's very open, you know, no matter the race, the religion, you know, the gender, everything's just very open and very kind of contained. It could also be a bad thing, because us being a small island, we tend to be, you know, kind of centered in what's going on here and not really open to what's going on to the rest of the world. But for the most part, the safety is the #1 reason, you know, why I really appreciate being here in Taiwan. I've accomplished a lot of great things being here in Taiwan. The fact that they were open to, people always say, you know, Davis, thank you so much, you know, for what you're done for our country as far as with the basketball. And that's what makes sports so valuable in the rest of the world. You know, you look at a lot of the top countries that are performing well. Sports is very, very important because what it does is bring us all together as a team to work together. In the past, mostly Asian cultures have really focused on their kids staying in school and really focusing on their books, focusing on their education through that. But again, around the world, some of the top performing countries have great sports teams. What that does is it forces you to be able to work together as a youth. It forces you to be able to run, play, fall down, build leadership, decide if you're a leader and if you're not a leader. And then the other thing is that you don't care about ethnicity, you don't care about how rich you are, hierarchy, you don't think about any of those things when you're playing as a team and through sports. Later on, if you don't make it to the professional level, that's still okay as a kid. Still encourage the kids, parents and adults still encourage the kids to play sports because later on, you're gonna get into marketing, you're gonna become a doctor, you're gonna wanna become an architect, you're gonna wanna do anything. And what that ties back into is playing again as a team involving sports. And that's very, very important. So sports never leaves, you know, the market of technology, reaching out, leaving your comfort zone, and getting together as a group to figure out solving problems. And again, you're gonna have some ups and downs where you fail. It's okay, you get back up, you try it again a different way. There's nothing wrong with failing. A lot of times you hear about leaders talk about their success, but no one talks about how many times they fell down and got back up. So that's the main important thing that you have to do is get back up. With the diversity, that's very, very important because the way I see things, the way I grew up, the way my culture was back in America, I can bring those ideas here to Taiwan and everybody's like, wow, you know, David's like, how do you know how to do that? I was like, you guys don't understand. I've probably lived like 3 lifetimes compared to my fellow colleagues. You know, I climbed trees, I've started fires when I was 10 years old, you know, but the Taiwanese culture is such a small culture, you don't get a chance to have that open backyard and front yard to do all these type of things. So we grew up fast there, so it's very contained, very limited resources, but by them reaching out to me and say, Davis, come to Taiwan, come play for the national team, I think we can do great things. It was really a huge success and it was really the motivation that they needed. Yes, I did some great things, I played a really good game, you know, beating against mainland China, playing against the Philippines, we beat them. But, you know, like, thank you for coming. I'm like, you know, thank you guys for having me. You guys gave me a second opportunity to, at 28, to continue to play around the world and showcase my talent and really make a name for myself. But even with that team that we played against in 2013, almost 10 years ago now, we still had all the right puzzles. All the right pieces to that puzzle. They just added one little me. Again, there's 5 players that's on that team. They added one little me, and they were able to give them the motivation and the dedication that they needed to win. I did some great things, but the rest of those players, if you go back and look at that game, they all did some amazing things. They really had their chest out and really stepped up to the plate and really did amazing things. So I think that's based on this, is the diversity, of bringing the diversity in. They see a leader, they see my tall stature, it really made them feel confident and accomplishing the goals that we really, really did. So that's what we really, really need. We really need to look and see, you know, everybody on your team is not gonna be the most educated, they're not gonna be the most fastest, they're not gonna be the most, you know, successful people, but together as we work as a team, we can really achieve a lot. And I think that's very, very important. So diversity is very, very important, you know, not through basketball, but just through anything that you can name. I do a lot of speeches at schools, and I try to, you know, talk to the parents. I know the kids want to play sports, but you really have to get it through to the parents, because again, the parents have it in their mind that my kid's not gonna make it to the NBA. And it's okay, he may not make it to the NBA, but he's gonna learn a lot through leadership. Again, if he wants to be a doctor, if he wants to be a brain surgeon, guess what? You're gonna have a body on the table. You're gonna have you're gonna have a guy from India You might have a guy from Malaysia, from China, from Taiwan. They're all going to come together to work on this one body and bring him back to life. And again, that sports is what really helps bring it all together. Architecture is very, very important. We have a lot of earthquakes here. It's okay to bring the sports back into it, and again, get our kids to travel. Send them to Haiti. Haiti has a lot of earthquakes. The foundation is not very good. They're still good to go there because we need to figure out why they failed. And again, the failure is very, very important because we see how the infrastructure, we know what not to do. A lot of the success that I have is from a lot of failures. a lot of failures. I fell down a lot of times, made a lot of mistakes, and I corrected those things. It's when you keep on doing the same mistakes over and over again the wrong way. So I think that's very, very important. But again, I appreciate the diversity that Taiwan has brought here. I appreciate, you know, just the open-minded concept of having me the opportunity to be here. So that's why, again, we're able to have this successful moment, you know, coming up on 10 years now, and really celebrating, you know, my legacy here. So again, I am full Taiwanese. I'm going to be here forever. Again, I really appreciate the safety so much. I really appreciate the love and the culture that we have here. But again, even though I'm with sports, it ties all into one thing. It really ties into one thing, us coming together, us being complete, us working together, accepting different religions, different cultures. And I'll speak about religion too, because it's very, very important. I remember when I first came here, we would always go to the temple. And I had some other American, and one guy from, can't think of where he was from. I think he was maybe from Europe somewhere. He's like, you know, Davis, I don't like going to the temples. I don't like going to the temples. I'm like, why not? You know, he's like, yeah, it's just not my God. I was like, think about it as this. If I come to your house and I see your mom, I'm going to approach her as mom. I'm going to greet her. I'm going to say hello. I'm going to have full respect for her as an extension of my mother. I was like, when I come to these temples, you know, I don't have to engage in every single thing, but I'm going to respect their God and thank their God for blessing him that trickles down and blesses me. And he was like, whoa. So I didn't think about that. You know, it's not that you're being disrespectful to the God that you praise. It's also just being respectful to, you know, to their culture. Because at the end of the day, their God is blessing them in some form or fashion that's going to trickle down to you. And, you know, we have to be appreciative. So it's not about, you know, right or wrong. It's just about respect. And I think that's what Taiwan brings. It's a lot of respect at the end of the day. So as long as we can respect and love each other and continue to be open-minded, I think that's what brings us together and help lifts us and bring a stronger culture here to Taiwan and through the economy and, you know, things of that nature. So, yeah, so that's my story, and I really appreciate, you know, the time and opportunity that this organization has given to me, put me on this platform. So, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for the great story. I really admire about the cultural diversity. I'm sure like a lot of you might have questions for Q, but let's hold the question to the Q&A section later. So all of our panelists can put in something that to answer the question. So thank you so much, Q.
Thank you.
And we do appreciate your aspects. So while we are setting out for the layout for the panel discussion, I would like to take this chance while they prepare the stage to introduce the background of these forums. Over the past decade, many governments and corporations, companies around the world have incorporated diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility to their visions and strategy into, you know, their companies and corporation goal. It's been increasingly recognized that a diverse and inclusive workplace society with a range of approaches and perspective is an asset to position ourselves to prosper in the future. Today, we're very delighted to have AIT officers and successful leaders from different fields, different backgrounds, to share their insights on how to advance DEIA to different fields, company, or our society. So, without further ado, let's welcome today's moderator, Mr. Patrick Boland, the Economic Officer at AIT. And our panelist, Ms. J.C. Liu, from HR Senior Director from Micron of Asia. Mr. Dan Stevenson, Engineer Senior Director of Microsoft Teams. Ms. Li Wang, General Counsel and Head of Public Policy of AppWorks. And Mr. Jay Lin, Founder and CEO of Dadaulala and Portico Media. And last but not least, again, let's welcome Q, our professional basketball player, to join our panel. Patrick, the floor is yours.
Thanks so much. Once again, welcome everybody, and thank you, Mr. Davis, for your remarks, really inspiring. And thank you to all our panelists. And I'll introduce you all as we go through. But you know, we're holding this event, AIT, in partnership with others. So I thought I'd maybe take the chance right now to talk a little bit about these values of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility for my employer, which is the State Department. And then we'll talk about, with this diverse group of panelists, how it's working in big tech, in startup, in media, and of course in sport. First, I guess I'd like to just start it with a quote from our Secretary of State, who said that our country, the United States, diversity is our greatest strength. When we fully leverage everyone and everything our nation has to offer, our foreign policy is stronger, smarter, and more creative. And so I think that's a good way to sort of frame things. I mean, I think, you know, these values are all about making our society better, our workplaces better, and our lives better. And so, as Luke mentioned in his opening remarks, you know, with the Biden administration coming in almost 2 years ago now, these values really became a centerpiece of how we guide our work as diplomats and around the world. That's been done both structurally by adding new positions, like for the first time there's an ambassador at large who is basically the secretary's right-hand person for making sure that these values are instituted in all of our policies, in our programs, and even in the workplace. And a part of that is, you know, as a public servant, we don't get bonuses, but we are motivated by the possibility of getting promoted. And so every year we have to write this report that says all the great things we did. And now, for the first time ever, having you know, experience in doing activities that promote these values is a core precept, just as important as how good you are at managing a budget or how great your diplomatic cables are. There's also, you know, on a macro level, been an attention to how do you. A lot of people sometimes leave the government because they're angry about something. So, and sometimes that's because of discrimination. You know, the State Department still has a lot of in our most senior leadership ranks, there's not as much diversity as we would hope for. And so there's a whole office now that's looking at why people leave and tracking that data and trying to make policies better. Something that's pretty unique about our organization, and I think some of our colleagues here from some of the larger companies share, is that we have a global workforce. So we're in 257 embassies, consulates, and institutes around the world. And in each one of these places, we're working with local staff, you know, like Jerry and Sharon and Da-Ching, and we are able to incorporate, you know, best practices from these different countries and learn how to respect the differences linguistically, culturally, religiously, et cetera, that all of our colleagues from the local staff bring. We also, from an institutional perspective, have what we call employee organizations. And so these are kind of affinity groups. So if you're from, you know, like I said at the beginning, the US is a very diverse country. We come from all over around the world. And so we have organizations within our our government that represent, you know, African Americans or LGBTQ people, or there's a federal women's program. So all different types of organizations can have, you know, an affinity group that can help raise their concerns to the leadership of the State Department. And another thing that's unique about the State Department is that we're the government, and so all of our finances are public, and so are all of our salaries. So depending on what your rank is, you could Google, you know, State Department salaries and see what that is. It's equal work for equal pay. So if you're a senior person in the State Department, your pay is public and everyone else can see that. And same with our colleagues in the United States or at embassies abroad. You might get paid more in a certain country because it's more expensive to live there or it's too dangerous to live there, so there's an incentive. But it's all, if you're this rank, this is what your salary is. So that's something that I think is pretty equitable if we're talking about these values. In coming down to the level where we are here in Taipei, here at the American Institute in Taiwan, we've also started a number of different initiatives to promote these values. You see it in our hiring process, right? There's been a very deliberate decision to try to incorporate a more diverse, section leadership team of people. In the past, sometimes there was, not as much diversity, especially for people who were going to Asian countries or societies to work. But there's been a real effort to improve that diversity so that it really reflects Americans broadly. And how do we do that is that when every year we have a bidding process where we invite people from around the world to come to bid or apply to work at AIT. And so we in that process, we're very conscious about how we ask the same questions to everybody, how we turn off the video on Teams so that we can not see that person who's talking to us, because we all have unconscious bias. We use the same medium, so if not one person can't just apply in person, everyone has to apply the same way, whether it's in person or online. And we also include our local staff in some of those hiring decisions so that their voices can be heard. Lastly, I would just like to mention, the State Department is the government, and so it's kind of hierarchical, right? And so decisions have to go, it's a bureaucracy, go up the chain as you make them. But we also make a really, important strides to ensure that there's some safety valves. So if you're really feeling like your boss is discriminating against you, or there's some kind of problem, we have some, anonymous feedback that goes directly to the leadership of AIT. Or we have other ways that you can, express your dissatisfaction, but kind of in a, controlled government way. So yeah, I think that those are just a few thoughts I'd like to offer at the top. And as we go through, I think all of our organizations are quite different in terms of size, in terms of global footprint, in terms of the type of topics that these organizations deal with on a day-to-day basis. But I'll stop there and turn the floor over to our colleague Jesse from Micron. And so Jesse is a senior manager in Micron's HR department, and has we've had the chance to visit their site here in Taiwan. She'll probably go into it more, but a third of their global workforce of 45,000 people is here in Taiwan. So they have a lot to offer. And a lot of lessons that we can learn from AIT's perspective, and I think that all of us here in the audience can also learn. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jessie.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. So maybe I move to there. I prepared some slides because we have done a lot of things, and today I have some focus because of the time constraint. I think slides will help to concentrate, okay, and more structure. Before talking about our DEI, actually today is DEIA. We haven't added A accessibility in our DEI, but it is one of our category when we do the engage survey. So actually, we even just call DEI, we are doing DEIA, okay? Micron has founded in 1978. So means we are more than 14 years old, okay? And Micron is the number 4 semiconductor company around the world, and we are the top 3 in memory industry, okay? And just mentioned, we have more than, actually the total number already increased to 48,000, and we have 17, our footprint is in 17 countries. So that from culture diversity-wise, it's a lot of diversity, a lot of different culture in our company. Therefore, DEI become very important since 2017. And for the past 5 years, we learned through the process and continue to adjust our DEI policy, our DEI approach. So that today I have this honor to share with you what we have done today. And we are based in US, and Taiwan is the DRAM center of excellency. Means most of DRAM that's produced from Taiwan contributes to Micron's big revenue. I want to use this slide to share with you. Actually, just in summary, we have done a lot of practice to promote our DEI. But I will say we are in two-way approach to drive the DEI agenda in Micron. What do you mean the two-way? Because we know DEI is a culture. It's a culture shaping process. It cannot be just set a policy or a guideline there, then it will happen automatically. So that during the past 5 years, Micron continued to do the top-down approach and the bottom-up approach. And for the top-down, later on you will see we have the leadership commitment. We have 6 commitments in our DEI agenda. However, each commitment has senior executive as the sponsor to drive for that agenda. And for the bottom-up, that's also the portion I would like to share you more on this one, because this is what we can do, and it's happened on the side, on the ground, and every day. Okay, we empower our employee resource group. In short, we call it ERG. Now in Micron totally, we have 10 ERG chapter, and in Taiwan we have 5 chapter. We encourage team members with different focus, different agenda. They can get together and use the resources that company provide to promote and enhance the DEI in the country or in the company directly. So later on you will see which ERG we have. Okay. So this is the 6 commitment I just mentioned. The first 3, number 1, 2, 3 actually is more focused on our internal. So including we want to increase the representative of our underrepresented, because in semiconductor, in the high-tech industry, female maybe is very big, a small portion of team member is mainly dominated by male in the past. So female is also one of our focus, one of our underrepresented. And in Taiwan, we also identify like a foreign team member, because we now continue to hire more and more foreign team member into Taiwan. Just like you need to understand Taiwan's culture, and our team member also need to know how to embed themselves into this culture. And the second, I think Patrick also mentioned the pay equity. In Micron, we also focus on pay equity. All the pay is only defined by your own performance, your contribution to the company, not by gender or any non-related items. However, the difference is we won't publish team members' pay to everyone because it's confidential in our company. However, we will engage, every year we will engage third-party agency come to audit, and they have a very complicated ecosystem to review and calculate if we are doing the pay equity. And number 3 is about the inclusion culture. 4, 5, 6 is more external, okay? Number 4 is support the LGBT. Later I will show you more what we are doing. And number 5 is engage minority-owned financial institutes, because we are doing a lot of business with different banks. So we also would like to support the underrepresented group who run the financial institutes. And number 6, increase the representation and the spend with diverse supply. So we also focus on the our supply chain, our supply, so that make sure we have more supply can come into this industry, not just dominated by some big supplier. Okay, so that's what we are doing for top down, and this is a model that we empower the way we empower our ERG to have their strengths and the power from bottom up. I think we have been promote ERG for many years. However, starting from last year, we start to introduce the 4C model. That's mainly to empower our ERG to build more intentional, actionable, and objective into their activity. So no matter which ERG you are from or you are joined, we all follow this 4C model. First one is culture. So our ERG can focus on the culture, and then promote the awareness, okay? And the career is, we also hope our ERG can support underrepresented career growth in the company, okay? And the community is how we leverage our ERG's power so that they can reach out to community and also support the DEI in the environment. Because we think if it's only Micron doing the DEI, only Micron promote the DEI, we can just change Micron. However, we know the culture actually is not just within a company, it should be the whole environment. So that's what we put community here. And another one is the commerce. I think the commerce for us is something we are still in the beginning because we think there's still a lot of things we can do. The commerce actually is try to link ERG, that their activity can link to company's goal. So that's the 4C model. And under this 4C model, every ERG can be more focused and really structured to do their DEI promotion. Following is the growth and the recognition of our ERG leaders. I think based on the survey, Micron is the only top 5% of Fortune 500 companies that's really reward ERG leaders, okay? And we also provide 5 pay hours per month for encourage team member to participate and attend ERG activity. And our executive sponsor and the side sponsor all come from our senior leaders. Because when your senior leader support, team member will feel more comfortable to join non-work related ERG, okay? And we also organize the annual summit to accelerate our ERG leaders' leadership, okay? And following is just some example. This is the community example that we have done organized by our capable. Capable means is to support team member or the population with disability. So we call PWD, okay? And this is one of the Work for Eyes activity just happened recently in October. And this has just happened this weekend for LGBTQ Pride Parade. This is organized by Pride Airline ERG. And for the culture, we have MYP. MYP is Micron Young Professional. They lead the team, the ERG group, to visit the indigenous village, so understand the culture there. And Mosaic is organized by our foreign team member. So they introduce different different countries' culture to all the team members so that team member can better understand each other. And this is the career. We have mentoring organized MWLN. We have capable body program organized by capable ERG, okay? And for the comments, and just as what I said, we are still at the beginning. So this one is the online career talk with university students. And this is the MWLN for Girls Going Tech. We reach out to the university, to the high school, to promote the STEM education and encourage more team member, more students can choose to join semiconductor or high tech. I think it's to support Micron's goal of talent acquisition. So this is what I prepare for all of you. Hope it's helpful. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jesse. I think that those are some really interesting ideas. The paid, encouraging people to do this because sometimes all of us are busy at our jobs and we think of this as an extra. But really, I think Micron's showing that valuing people's time by paying them for some of these activities is really a unique thing that I haven't heard of before. So we'll keep the panel going, and we'll move on to Mr. Dan Stevenson, who's a Senior Director at Microsoft Teams Engineering. He's been here for about 4 years, and he's done some great things with products that we probably all use today, Windows, Azure, Skype. I think I'll leave the rest to Dan to talk about his experience with Microsoft.
I'm going to follow Jesse's lead. You can't have a Microsoft person at a talk without some PowerPoint slides. I apologize in advance, and if there's any bugs, of course, I'm actually using Google Docs. So I'm Dan Stevenson. I thought I would tell a little about myself and my own DEIA journey, and then get into kind of what big tech does from Microsoft's perspective. So I grew up in Ohio, which is kind of the middle part, kind of the Greenland of America. And I knew both Asians at my high school. So it was, not a very diverse area. I'm pretty much as non-diverse as it gets. I'm Caucasian, male, cis male, married with kids, old and overweight. So I fit in perfectly in America. There's a lot of people who look like me there, less so here, thankfully. But then my own journey, actually, it started, I went to college in Boston, at MIT, that's why I'm here at MIT. And I encountered people from other parts of the world, like, it's not like I didn't know the world existed, but it was my first opportunity working, as Q was saying, on teams with people with very different backgrounds from myself. People who grew up in impoverished backgrounds or not speaking English. And so that kind of created some awakening for me. Then I met my wife, she's from Taiwan. And so that totally, and then I met her mother. So that totally, that changed my, and she's still around, I hope it's not watching. But that definitely made me more aware of kind of East Asian culture and the religions in Taiwan. And then two other things happened actually a little further along in my career when I got to Microsoft. I've been at Microsoft about 20 years. In the beginning of my career, about 2004, we did a reorg. Reorg is the company sport at Microsoft. Not as exciting as basketball. And so I got moved into a group, and I went to have lunch. I thought I'd be proactive and social for an engineer, and went to have lunch with this guy whose team I was joining. We were going to be peers. And I said, oh, what did you do this weekend? And, most people go on a hike or something. He said, oh, I got married. I said, oh, that's amazing. Why are you, I was kind of confused, because in my worldview, when you get married, you go away to, I don't know, Hawaii for 2 weeks or something. And, oh yeah, I got married. I went to San Francisco and we got married. And then the penny dropped, and I realized, oh, because this is early 2004, California legalized gay marriage. Paul and his partner, look it up, Paul Luber, Stephen Johnson, San Francisco, you see their photo. It's one of the key press photos. They made the AP Wire, the Associated Press. They hopped on a plane, went to San Francisco and got married. That was in my lifetime, that's happened. Later, my cousin came out. She's a integrity director for the city of Philadelphia. That's kind of like the alley of American. But then she and her partner got married, had 2 kids. So and so I started becoming a lot more kind of personally aware of how this has impacted me. And then the key thing, the thing that I think kind of completed at least my journey to date was when my daughter was born, my firstborn, and came back from parental leave. Was all super excited. We had all the Excel charts mapping her feeding and poop schedule and all that. And then came back to work and started interacting with the women who worked for me and who worked for them and peers and so on. And thinking through what gender diversity meant for me as a manager who has a daughter. And that, I thought, okay, these meetings I'm in, the conversations we're having, do I want my child, and not just my child, but also my daughter specifically, do I want my daughter in that type of environment? And this was around the time, this is 2012, we got a new CEO, or promoted a CEO in 2014. And that, and this is a quote from him, there was a bit of a sea change in the attitudes of Microsoft around inclusion and empowerment both outward facing in terms of the opportunities that we want to enable, the potential we want to enable for our customers, but also inward in terms of how we want to achieve the best potential from our employees and create the right amount of cooperation and inclusion and participation. And as a manager, that also impacted me because I had teams. You know, we actually have, as Jesse was saying, at Micron they have a kind of an incentive or a commitment around DEIA. As managers at Microsoft, we actually have a diversity and inclusion commitment, a core priority. Oh, as Pat was saying, at State as well, where we're actually gold as managers on our ability to, or our impact on driving increased diversity and inclusion, not just in hiring, and we have a whole program around that, but also diverse narratives, inclusive narratives. Everything we do is online in Teams, and nowadays, just in part because of where we are and in part because of COVID. And there's a whole different style of inclusion that we have to drive there as well. Let me talk a little about what Microsoft is doing here. I'll make 3 different cases for kind of big tech's investment in DEIA. The first is the business case. This looks super American capitalist mercenary. We're doing it to make money, right? And maybe under the previous administration, no, I'm just kidding. But the thing that I like there was that 48% diverse companies innovate and outperform their competition by up to 48%. There's some other good economic points here as well. Oh, sorry, I'll go back. Where did that go? Okay. A few more good economic points there as well. The social political, this is a little more altruistic. Employees are more diverse. They're bringing those beliefs and viewpoints into the workforce, and they expect to see those reflected there. And more importantly, they expect to see the viewpoints of others reflected there and respected as well. As Q was saying about going to the temple, may not be your God or your gods, but it's still important to bring that respect in and observe and reflect that. And I do that with my kids. Actually, they have so many Jewish, Unitarian by background. My wife's Buddhist. We're in Taiwan. I don't know what they believe, but and it's up to them to decide that. But we make sure that we respect everything that we're bringing in there. And then there's also a human case, and this one here, when there's exclusion, you have reduced social behavior. People just withdraw. Not just when they're excluded, but when they see, as a manager, if I model exclusion, which I don't, but if I did that, that creates this dampening impact on everybody's willingness to participate, because everybody has their own particular exclusion angle. Maybe, you know, outwardly I don't look like the kind of person who would feel excluded, but inwardly I'm an introvert. I may not know something that's going on in a topic that's going on. I may have a history with somebody in a particular meeting or forum, and feel kind of timid or nervous about speaking out. And if there's an atmosphere of exclusion, then that's going to create an extra barrier to my ability to socialize and engage. And this one as well, increased defensiveness. We do a lot of meetings. We make a lot of ideas. We make a fair number of mistakes, but we iterate on those and learn from those. And if people are not able to take the feedback, reflect on it, own it, and go forward, but instead they're putting up barriers and being defensive, then as a company overall, we're hurting. These are some of the principles we have around this. You know, as an engineer and an engineering company, we're very outcomes oriented. We are a global company. We're pretty much everywhere. Here in Taiwan, I've lost count. I think we have over 1,000 people, several hundred just in engineering alone. We do make it science-based, including data. We publish an annual report with our diversity and inclusion numbers. We track our hiring and things like that. And we try to be competent and aware of the cultures within we operate. Here are a few examples of some of the things we're doing, and I think these are representative of what other multinational American tech companies are doing as well. So you could assume Google, Meta, et cetera. Inclusive benefits, fertility and adoption support, that's a big one. We have that in Taiwan as well. As a parent, I know there's, for me at least, it's nothing more important in my life than being a parent. And so a company that can respect that and be inclusive about that and broadly inclusive about that, by gender, by fertility, et cetera, that creates much more loyalty among the employees and much more willingness to keep staying employed after they have the children, which is a whole set of retention challenges. And then there's one here around, I don't know if we called it out. You probably know America's going through a bit of a cultural moment right now. And there's the states, different states are not allowing different things to happen. Microsoft actually has a policy that if we have an employee who is living in a state where a particular medical benefit is not allowed, like transgender medical procedures or abortion. Microsoft will fly that employee to a location where that's allowed. There's a pretty strong message that sends on the social scene, but it also sends a very strong message to the employee about how they're valued and how they're included. And these are some of the other things we're doing broadly, publicly. We engage in a lot of forums. We have this very activist president, Brad Smith. He's been at the company a very long time. He travels all over the world advocating on behalf of the social good, not just for Microsoft, but for the world at large. Two last things I want to cover as an engineer. These are things that we do every day within our engineering teams. I work on Microsoft Teams. If you're not familiar with that, it's like Zoom plus Slack. You probably already have it. So inclusive design and inclusive AI. So inclusive design, this is when we're designing products or triaging bugs or making decisions. How do we make sure that we're driving the right inclusion agenda? And a few points from that. One is recognizing exclusion when you see it and your biases. You cannot ever hope to be perfectly neutral and unbalanced. Everybody has a bias. Everybody brings biases in. Recognizing those and then maintaining objectivity and awareness of those and bringing in contradictory data, new viewpoints, is essential to reaching good design decisions. Learning from diversity. When we see people with disabilities and other types of limitations using our products, and we see how they adapt to using the products, that sparks a whole new set of innovations that we can drive. If you look at things like closed captions on television, that was invented for hearing impaired people to know what was going on the TV show. It's also how my wife learned how to read English. It's how my father-in-law watches most TV these days, just because he likes to keep the TV on all the time and we don't really want to listen to it. But we have that going on. It's how a lot of people may be watching this webcast with the closed caption. So that was a constraint that led to a design decision that was specifically targeted at disability or inclusion angle that actually has very broad benefits. And that's also around this last point, solve for one, extend to many. When you design with constraints, you can design well. It really forces you to think creatively. And then inclusive AI, now this is a little more of a frontier, much more active area. This is things like making sure that your chatbots are not racist, making sure that your facial recognition software is not trained to recognize this type of face and not other types of faces. There's a number of different biases that we add or we program against, not computer program, but kind of policy program and educate against around data sets or associations, automation. If the AI is recommending all these things, it keeps recommending things, you'll never see a diverse set of viewpoints. You'll never see an image show up that's not like all the other images that you already looked at. So we have to think about how those algorithms balance helping people find what they want, but also helping people achieve a more diverse and inclusive perspective. And some of the insights we derived from this bias runs on a spectrum. We use customers and the customer inputs to guide us and correct us. We incent inputs from people who are underrepresented, so we want to get face scans and iris scans and speech patterns and so on. And so we actually go out of our way to get that data without any kind of privacy concern from the people who would provide that. And the very last point I'll say in closing, inclusive teams build inclusive AI. So we try to make sure that the teams that are developing these technologies have awareness of inclusion and are themselves very inclusive as well. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ben. That was fascinating, and I think that I think in all of our different walks of life and careers, we have to figure out ways to include these values in them. And I was struck by your point about even in the engineering, like the most hardcore like ones and zeros, you have to think about like how you design a product or something inclusively, and especially as we enter the world of AI, like how those algorithms and those just big data sets, how they're going to affect our lives going forward. So next up, I'd like to welcome Li Wang. She's the general counsel at AppWorks, which is an accelerator for startups here in Taiwan. And she's got a lot of great experience from the legal side and also the startup side, and serves as the chairwoman of Innovation and Technology Committee at the Taipei Bar Association. So Li, I'd love to welcome you up to the stage. There's also another mic there.
Hi, I'm Ling. Happy to be here to share about the Everest experience, which I think is quite special. So Everest is a startup community. It's a group of people, a group of passionate, talented, and dedicated founders and developers from all over the world who work together with the same mission to make Taiwan better and make the world better. Started a decade ago, we now have over 1,000 founders in our ecosystem. And we built this community with 3 layers of infrastructure. Excel layer for founders, which is free of charge. And the coding school for developers, which is also free of charge. And the VC funds, which we pay to support the founder journey along the way. We are proud of this community not only because the business success of the startups, but also because many of them actually create many tools to promote the DEIA value and also try every effort to empower everyone. So, speaking of technologies, people are talking about metaverse, 元宇宙, right? So other than the AR, VR technologies, blockchain also plays a very significant role to transform the internet from Web 2 to Web 3. This is because internet facilitates data transfer, whereas blockchain, known as distributed ledger technology, features value transfer. So Web 1 basically refers to the era of Yahoo News. We read whatever the internet feeds us. And Web 2 refers to the era of Facebook and YouTube. We're not only the readers, but also the content creators. However, many Web 2 business models monetize from user data by nature, right? So this also creates a lot of concerns around privacy, monopoly, engagement farming, disinformation, and political polarization, and all that. So we're now hoping Web3, which can do both data transfer and value transfer, will be able to fix the pain points by correctly addressing the topic of ownership. So the definition of ownership here can be as narrow as having things, and can be as broad as having rights or powers. Some examples of what the Everest community is doing to make sure people own whatever they deserve, either things or rights or powers. So Matters is a Web3 media platform. Content created on Matters would be published through IPFS, which is a decentralized file sharing storing system. So this would make the content rather difficult to be removed. And Litecoin is a blockchain itself, and is also known as the easy-to-use web plugin. The 2 teams joined Everest during different batches, but the 2 founders are both from Hong Kong and have this the same sense of urgency for everyone's voice to be heard. So it just makes perfect sense for them to work together, and now we have this combined product. So when readers, when they enjoy the articles on Matters, they can click like for the article, and the author would get paid by Litecoins. And then also the most liked articles would get pushed further to more readers by algorithm. So we say we always say access to information, access to internet is human right. And the 2 founders they started their project in response to the different Web 2 issues, but it turns out that the value they created together actually is way beyond the original use cases. Indeed, most of our Web3 teams in our ecosystem, they use this platform when they distribute content. FatDAO is another interesting example. So DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. In plain language, it means a mission-driven community using blockchain for bottom-up governance. So they're experimenting in all kinds of projects to explore the potentials of cryptos and NFTs. One thing I like to highlight is that they're also testing the idea of project funding. So a project supported by fewer people with a larger amount of tokens, and a project supported by more people with a smaller amount of tokens will both get their votes out, and also because the voters get to choose. And we always say 少数服从多数，多数尊重少数, right? but it's always the majority votes that counts, and the minority is always protected by like affirmative actions or all those kind of top-down approaches. So projected voting or projected funding is really a brave move from bottom up. So imagine this to be applied to a country, a city, a corporate, a school, or whatever community. So, so Web3 is not just this speculative buy and sell as we see on the face of it. I really loved the topic today, advancing DEIA values for all, and also to echo to what Q and the other guests just shared. So in Web3, we also believe that the more diverse, the more DEIA an ecosystem is, the more prosperous and sustainable the ecosystem would be. So there's really no reason for us to not promote or embrace the DEIA values. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Amy. Yeah, and that's something that, I mean, I'm still a student, maybe a lot of experts in the field about blockchain, but that's another new technology that I think, is about empowering, or can be about empowering everyone. Could also not be about empowering others, but I think it's about a conscious decision that we make. And, AppWorks has a lot of just, their ecosystem, which we'll talk about, have some questions about that and how you infuse these values into smaller organizations as well. But just moving along, we'll kind of turn to a different sector. So we just heard from larger tech companies, from organizations that fund small startup tech companies. But now I'd like to turn to a media organization. And so we're honored to have Jay Lin here, who's the founder of Portico Media, which recently just won a big award last weekend. Maybe you could talk about that as well. And welcome Jay to share your story.
Thank you to AIT and TCA for inviting me to be here. When AIT first asked me to be part of this panel, I was kind of scratching my head because although Portico Media has been around for 17 years, since 2005, we only, to be honest, full transparency here, we only actually hired our HR this year. And so whilst with like Jesse and Dan, massive big IT companies talking about, to a certain extent, top-down policies for HR to include DEIA into their sort of policy or corporate environment, we come from more grassroots and kind of organic development of how Portico Media is now known as one of the most established LGBT brands in Asia, having launched probably now the world's largest LGBTQ streaming service. But that was not always, that was not how we started as an entity in 2005. So let me walk through this PowerPoint with the attendees here on how we have been developing organically our DEIA values and how in the future we want to incorporate that from a more organic, bottom-up development into a top-down structure. So yes, you mentioned small organization for sure. Next to the giants like Micron and Microsoft, We're a small organization with 60 employees, but I do believe that within the organization, it's quite equitable and quite equal. We have a male-female balance of 50-50. Actually, of course, as a company that is doing LGBT business, we have 66% of the workforce who are openly LGBT, and currently our Taiwan to foreign employee ratio is 91% to 9%. So, for those of you who doesn't know Gagaulala, Portico Media, we have 4 business structures. One is we aggregated and imported in a lot of foreign channels in Taiwan, about 20. So the likes of CNBC, MTV HD, a lot of channels that you see on your IPTV or digital cable operators. That's our main bread and butter. And Gagaulala, which is an LGBT streaming service. And what Pat mentioned, Hahatai, for those who are familiar here, is the award that we won last weekend at the Walking Bell Awards for our best interview, because we have a GFR series, and also our own news verticals like Drama Queen, Hahatai, Lalatai, and yes, that's it. So now to topic about how we have espoused DEIA within our organization. It would have to be from a point of view of CSR. So, like I mentioned, I started Portico Media in 2005. And for the first 7 years, as you would know quite well, a company, an enterprise just tries to stay alive and be commercially viable. So there wasn't really any thought to DEIA. The survival is kind of like the key issue. But after 7 years, after Portico Media established commercial viability, I began assessing what it is that I could do as part of a media environment in Taiwan, where me, as an openly gay man in the media sector, with many friends who are working in the media industry who are gay, but they're not out to their bosses, right? And also in the media in the media environment, there isn't a lot of LGBT characters and storylines that we see. So 7 years after Portico Media, I had chats with my colleagues and say, okay, is there something that we can consider doing that could present a more diverse and more inclusive environment into the media industry, and perhaps through our actions get other media sectors to be investing or acquiring or distributing more LGBTQ content. So in 2013, along with full consensus from staff of Portico Media, we launched TIQFF. Well, first, before that, we started an association called Taiwan International Media and Education Association, which became the nonprofit arm to launching the Taiwan International Queer Film Festival. And that began our road into integrating LGBTQ activism into Portico Media's CSR. Over the years, as we, the festival now is into its 9th year. Portico Media ran the festival for 3 years. And as the process of running the film festival, we realized that being a company that was able to espouse diversity and inclusion and LGBT visibility is something that energizes all staff. And so, whilst we still have our regular business at Portico Media, the staff of Portico Media took on additional roles as volunteers for the NGO, for TIMEA. But of course, as a business entity, this goes back to commercial viability again. You can't just rest on doing corporate responsibility if you can't survive as an enterprise. But after 3 years of TIQFF, we realized that there is a viable business that we could actually initiate where we could bring diversity and inclusion and LGBT visibility to not just in Taiwan, but gradually over these past years to Southeast Asia, to South Asia, and to the rest of the world. So officially in end of 2016, beginning of 2017, we launched Gagaulala. And now we're into our 6th year. Over these 5 to 6 years, we have built a queer-making film system that is now viable and sustainable. We currently have 2.5 million members in our streaming service. And over the past 5 years, we've created over 60 plus originals, including 2 weekends ago, we won at the Golden Bell Awards, Kim Jong-jang, for Best Miniseries for our lesbian series, 第一次遇见华夏兰克, Fragrance of the First Flower, with the 2 actresses winning also for Best Supporting Actress and Best Actress. So while I was sitting in the stands, as an audience, I really believe that we have come a long way from first kicking off the TIQFF to espouse more diversity and inclusion in Taiwan's media industry, to now becoming actually one of the major agents for change, and seeing directors, our director go on stage and openly come out as a lesbian filmmaker, and the actress going on stage and dedicating that award to the global queer community. Through our verticals here, and also as part of our queer filmmaking ecosystem, we've created many partnerships over the years, including becoming one of the co-founders of the Marriage Equality Coalition, which was one of the major civil societies that pushed for marriage equality passage in Taiwan. But without going into a lot of detail, we've also created a lot of partnerships along the way with governmental, corporate, as well as governmental, corporate, as well as governmental, corporate, and nonprofit sectors over the years. So it is at this stage now where the company is getting a little bit bigger, and we've done so much promotion for the DEIA externally that we're coming back to look internally of how we can start to implement policies within our company. So it is a great honor for us to be here to learn best practices from various enterprises, whether big and small. And for us, there are 3 key sectors within the SDG that we would like to focus on: gender equality, decent work, and economic growth, and reduce inequalities. And I think we are an example of how, whether it's tech or whether it's media, for Taiwan companies that really want to go beyond our national borders and become international enterprises, how we incorporate not only for example, LGBTQ inclusion, but also become more aware of what you mentioned: religion, race, sexual orientation, and gender. I think whilst Taiwan has become like a beacon for LGBTQ rights in Asia, I think there's still a lot of areas of inclusion, equity, and equality, and communications that we need to have in order to really be a viable enterprise, attracting the best talents in the world. And also, I think as a nation moving forward, I think we really need to focus on so many other issues. Yes. So lastly, with this PowerPoint, I'd like to end here because the Taipei Pride just happened last weekend, the 20th year, and we're continuing to incorporate a lot of partnerships with companies big and small into our Kaka'ulala filmmaking ecosystem. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dave. Yeah, I mean, I think that's really interesting to hear about your story about starting as these were just CSR things, and then we kind of spun off into its own amazing ecosystem for the LGBT community. So, Q, I don't know if you wanted to share anything additionally now, or if we should just move. I've got a number of questions, and I've seen some questions come in for the audience, but I don't know if you have any additional thoughts after hearing.
Yeah, I forgot to mention the one, diversity thing with the LGBTQ. It was an interesting situation. Being in America, just being, growing up, we're very homophobic in America. So I remember when I first started traveling, you're playing basketball and you're doing stuff. And I remember first going to Greece, and I'm there and I'm in the locker room, and first the first couple of days of practice, I didn't practice. So I remember everybody 3 o'clock, we finished practice, everything is okay, they're leaving. They left right on time. Second day I come there, same thing happened. Everybody left at 3 o'clock. I practiced the third day, and all my teammates are waiting for me to go take a shower, obviously. so it's like just like, okay, this is weird, you know what I mean? So I get to the shower room and everybody's just like, they're just talking to me, just like amazed and just like looking at me. I was like, assistant coach, like, are these guys like gay or something like that? They're like, no, they're just like interested in a tall black guy, you know what I mean? So that was my first really like experience, and it's like, you gotta like let your guard down, because again, I'm growing up. Like I remember my sisters and my brothers, like if I went up to them and just asked them in a more like calm way, like, hey sis, can I have this? Like, why are you talking like that? You know, talk with your chest out, you know what I mean? Everything just has to be so like dominant. So again, playing basketball and sports, you know, I'm traveling the world, and now I'm like really like opening up. So I get a chance to go to, first place I played in was in Beijing. And as soon as I step in the elevator, this stranger, this guy, he just comes up to me, he just grabs me on my chest. He's like, oh, so strong. And it's like my first instinct is just like punch him in the face, you know what I mean? So it's like, again, I had to relax and be calm, because I don't want to be the mean, angry black guy, you know what I mean, and possibly lose my job. You know, you just have to accept that people are fascinated, you know, by different things. And then so I'm more relaxed and I'm more calm, and I'm just accepting that, you know, these people are not gay, and if they are gay, they still appreciate, you know, if a girl did that to me, I definitely wouldn't mind. So watch out on that side. So again, years go on, and I finally make it to Taiwan. And I see that everybody is riding scooters together, whether it's my teammates or anything, and I'm like, in America, I could never do that. I could never ride a scooter together. So it was a rainy day, and I was sick that day. And I was like, Davis, I know that you don't like riding on the back of scooters because you don't like it, whatever. And I remember being sick, there was no taxis, and there was nothing I can do. So I tell my teammate, I said, hey, just get me on the scooter. And I grabbed a hold of him, and we're riding all the way to the hospital, and there's selfie in it. Davis said he would never do this, he would never do that, you know what I mean? So again, my success with basketball, and now I'm opening up, now I'm riding scooters, it doesn't mean anything, it doesn't mean that I prefer this, I don't prefer that. I'm like really like opening up, and it took playing sports and, you know, doing things like that. And then recently there was a, you know, with the law being passed for the gay marriage and things like that. And I was like, you know what? I have encountered a lot of friends who are gay, so I'm more open up, I'm more chill. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna sign this ballot and I'm gonna put it on my Instagram, because I have a lot of followers and a lot of people who support me. And I remember getting some comments, it was like, Davis, you know, I don't support, you know, this gay thing that you're signing, you know what I mean? I was like, well, put it in this perspective. If there's a car accident or somebody's just hurt and there's like an EMT or an ambulance shows up to the scene, and your mom or you or your friend or girlfriend is hurt, bleeding out, are you gonna ask this guy, is he gay? Are you gonna ask this guy, is he, you know, Buddhist? Is he Catholic? Is he this or that? You don't care. You just know that he's good at what he does. He could potentially save your life. So you're gonna accept it and be open arms and say, hey, go ahead at it. So if it doesn't matter in a life and death situation, then it shouldn't matter with who's being creative, passing laws, who's saving life, who's building the building, who's doing anything, who's working beside you. If they're coming with great ideas to help you and your company or potentially make things better for the rest of the world, then it shouldn't matter then. So that was a valuable lesson, that through sports, I'm inspiring people to accept it. And after I gave him that talk, he was like, you know what? I still don't agree, but since you broke it down in that way, I'm gonna vote for the same agreement with this thing. So again, through the sports, through Taiwan accepting me as a foreigner, a black guy coming to Taiwan, it really just trickles down and keeps on opening up many, many doors, that people open up their minds and open up their hearts and say, hey, we all live in this one world together, this is love and respect each other, and great things can happen. So that was the other thing that I left out of my speech that I just wanted to share. So.
Thanks, Davis. That's a really powerful story there. Well, I think at this point we're going to move into some questions and answers. And Gabby just reminded me that we have a Slido that, you know, if you've got any questions, you can scan the QR code here. I believe our audience online has a way to do that as well through the platform. So please, you know, put in some questions. In the meantime, I will ask a couple questions up front. So we heard a lot about, how these various organizations, big companies, small companies, individuals have, incentivized the culture of DEIA in the organization. But I was just wondering, like, how do you motivate, like, maybe an entry-level staff person to do this? And how, in turn, how do you get feedback from the bottom up? I mean, there's the employee groups that you mentioned, but maybe somebody is, doesn't want to go that way. Are there certain, release valves or feedback mechanisms from your company? So I'll start just down the line.
Thank you for the question. I think in Micron, we start from awareness, okay? Because everything, if you want to inspire the patient, it's start from the awareness. So that in Micron, we roll out the awareness training for team member to understand what's the difference in different underrepresented, and we also has a required training for our leader, how to lead inclusively, so that they can know how to encourage team member. Okay, and in our newcomer training, we also embed this kind of information so that team member know which group they can reach out and what kind of resources they can have. And when the newcomer, if they don't know what kind of information they can gain or what kind of resources they can have, I think it's difficult for them to really engage themselves. So starting from there, I think just as what I mentioned, we have young professional ERG, so that our ERG team member, they will reach out to the newcomer and reach out to all the team member. Therefore, even sometimes the activity is organized by certain ERG, but we usually open for all the team member. We welcome all the team member to join, because through the engagement, through the participation, they can be motivated and understand more. And when they see so many people have so many patients to participate on that, they will get influence and the impact. It will encourage them to engage more as well. Okay, so that this is what I would like to share.
Thank you. A couple of things occurred to me on that. For entry-level employees, in addition to some of the great ideas that Jesse was sharing, we try to create a series of ongoing programs around diversity and inclusion. So in my team, for example, we have my broader team, so it's roughly 100 people. We have a monthly D&I forum, and we bring in guest speakers. And the guest speakers are outside of the company usually, a startup executive, like a transgender software engineer who's kind of famous on Twitter for advocacy. We bring in different people who will speak to the group, and regardless of the perspectives people bring in or the particular kind of checkboxes they bring in, it covers a broad set of topics to help people kind of develop, especially entry-level folks, develop that baseline awareness around kind of what DEIA means for the company and why it is an important value. We do the same thing, or a similar thing, I should say, for managers, where there's a training around this. And actually, what we've done is we've tried, in addition to I'd say this corporate standard DEIA type programming, we also have in our performance culture a real emphasis on inclusion and kind of group participation. So we have a manager training framework called Model Coach Care, which is intended to encourage managers to be less directive, more listening, more curious, get more questions, have more of a conversation with their employees. And then we also gauge our employees' performance on 3 areas, not just your direct impact, but also the impact you have that benefits others and the work you do that builds on the impact from others. And those are equally weighted when we do our performance reviews. That's not strictly a DEIA metric, but what it does is it encourages much more inclusion and sharing. There's a classic meme about Microsoft's culture where they draw an org chart and everybody in the org chart is pointing a gun at everybody else. And you may have seen this, different companies have different models. And this circles of impact, I think, tries to transcend that and say, we need to be all working together, sharing, advancing, and being more inclusive as we work on our projects.
So this one's simple. So in a founder community like Everest, founders do things for themselves. They don't do so because the boss says so. So as long as they'll do whatever to make their business better. So like Q just mentioned, if the LGBT community, they will be either your clients or your business partners. There's no reason for any startup business to exclude any kind of community events. So they will embrace everyone, just to like I just mentioned, the Web3 ecosystem, diversity and equality and inclusiveness and accessibility. Everything is so important. They're all crucial key factors for a startup to get success. Thank you.
For us, I think rather than think of it as a policy, I try to create a family environment within political media. And within family, I think you automatically will give people opportunities. We provide opportunities for people to have lunches together, happy hours together, and just through curiosity and respect, know more about each other. I mean, we have a transgender person in our company, and we have someone from South Asia, for example, and people, in a sort of open environment where people can easily talk to each other during breaks. That just kind of really develops the culture of transparency and openness and respect, because people become friends, and friends become part of the Portico Media family. So, whilst I think we should need to have more structured DEIA, but right now it's really, like I mentioned earlier, a very organic, natural way of how we've been espousing DEIA.
Great. Well, next question kind of comes off of that one, and it's just you've talked a lot about the things that you're proud of the different organizations. What do you think you could do better in each one of your companies, or even there's from the experience with sports? What are ways that teams can work better together?
Thank you. I mentioned in my presentation that we have a 4C model for our ERG. And currently, from our own evaluation, we think for the commerce one, we can do much better than now. Because the commerce one actually is to use our ERG activity to not only link to company's goal, but also to influence the whole society. So currently, we are working with Taiwan LGBT hotline and Taiwan equality campaign, because we do believe that if we want to change a culture, okay, a measurement is one of the engine that will trigger the power, because I believe you can agree that people will do, or company will do what has been measured. So what we are working now with these two organizations is to promote the Taiwan Equality Index, because in US there's a corporate equality index, and in Japan there is a work with pride equality index. So I think through the index setup, it will encourage more company to pay attention and would like to pay more effort on it. And it's also provide a chance for a company to self-evaluate and understand which area that we can do better. So give the corporate equality index in US as an example. Micron joined 3 years ago, and for the first time we joined, we only get 80 points, means 80%. But this year we got 100%. Because in the past 3 years, through this index evaluation, we know which area we can do better. And I think if in Taiwan we can promote and engage more corporate or company to support this kind of index, it will be gratefully not just support our commerce development, but also support the DEIA culture around the whole Taiwan, not just within micro.
I think 3 areas I would say, and I have to be careful because I don't speak on behalf of the company, but 3 things from my personal perspective around kind of being watchful around work from home, avoiding complacency on the overall D&I agenda, and then also modeling externally. In terms of the first one, we are in an era where flexible work, digital nomads, work from home is the norm. Our company has been pretty public about advocating for that and practicing that internally. If you look at our job openings, you'll see that there's quite a few that are kind of work anywhere. That brings its own set of inclusion challenges around time zones and how telegenic you feel. We have avatars now, so if you don't feel like turning in your camera, you can still have your avatar. Avatars also are always about 5 kg lighter, which is awesome. I don't know how that works. But that's something where I think we need to keep on top of that as our work styles evolve. On the complacent side, Q made a very passionate statement about how Taiwan is a safe and progressive area, and that's why I'm raising my children here. At the same time, I also know that we cannot be complacent, both internally inside our companies and externally in civil society. I've seen what happens. You can see that in the news. Where I originally come from, these things, these trends and progress can backslide, and new challenges emerge, new movements, and so on. So I think, even in Taiwan, I still see, whether it's the situation around migrant workers or the fact that spouses can't have a joint bank account or joint mortgage. I think there's always room for progress there. And then the last point I'd make is more around our opportunity where I think we should do more modeling externally. Less so in Taiwan, but I will say I work a lot with companies in Hong Kong who are using our software. Every company I work for in Hong Kong, the top 2 tiers of the IT leadership are white men from Europe or America or Australia. Hong Kong has excellent tech talent, as does Taiwan, and our leadership in Microsoft Hong Kong and Microsoft Taiwan is very representative of the local market. I'm always encouraging, and I think we could do more as a company to encourage our customers to model and reflect that as well.
Just following up what Jesse just mentioned. So the founders in our community, they have this mission to promote the DEIA values, not only within the community, but also they want to create tools for the public goods to be used outside of the Everest community. So this actually requires creativity and imagination. A recent example is that I was joking around with the founders saying that many of the founders and developers, they build tons of properties in metaverse, actually don't even own a real estate in real life. It's because it's way more easier to create a virtual room than buying one in real life. But I was like saying, wow, they actually create this modern age interpretation of a room of one's own, which was brought up by Virginia Woolf 100 years ago. So I think this again really persuasive to me that blockchain can empower people to have their own virtual or spiritual space to explore and to express his or herself. And we do believe that blockchain can be, the modern age interpretation of this kind of idea.
I think, in terms of political media and Gagawala, I don't think LGBTQ+ or gender inclusion is much of an issue. We also have a lot of heterosexual identified people in our company as well. But I think the key challenges for especially Taiwan small or medium enterprises that are hoping to become international enterprises need to have a lot more diversity training in other areas like race, religion, and also use this opportunity to dispel some of the stereotypes about, especially as Dan mentioned, Southeast Asians or other races or cultures that I think for maybe a lot of people in Taiwan have some negative stereotypes. I think that's something that we need to work on collectively if we really want to attract the best talents to work for a Taiwanese enterprise or to come to Taiwan. And I do believe Southeast Asia and South Asia have a lot of talents who are looking for opportunities to work with Taiwanese enterprises, big and small. So I think that's an area of diversity and inclusion that we would like to focus on as an enterprise going forward.
I think the sports world, from the States, from the NBA and now to here, we just recently did a breast cancer where we wear pink jerseys. Again, predominantly male sport for us to come out and support, women with breast cancer, bringing awareness to people who are scientists to, continue the effort, to try to end this this tragic thing. I think that's very important. But also, if we're having any type of disability, like wheelchair basketball, not too many people know about that. We can have that during our halftime in games to show that we're in support. That even though you're in a wheelchair, still have love for the game of basketball because again, those are the ones who are still supporting us and bringing great marketing to what we need for the sport. And even though it's against the rules for women to play, with the males. I still think that there's an opportunity for more females to be officials, being referees during the game. So I think we can improve on that aspect of it.
Thanks. Yeah, really interesting just to hear the different perspectives, different types of organizations. This question I think is probably more for, well actually it could be for Lean too, but more for the large tech companies, just about how is your experience here in Taiwan different from another market that you operate with around the world? And I know Lean, like AppWorks, has a lot of Southeast Asian startup companies as well. I'm not sure, Jay, if you've got some of your media properties are also based in other places, but I think that I also think about the question of not only geographically, but some of the companies here, you don't have all your employees sitting at a computer who can take they can go do the training once in a while and get the automatic reminder emails, but Micron's got fabs where you've got people actually moving robots around. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you get the message out to those people and how your experience is different here in Taiwan than maybe another country in the world where you operate.
Yes, we are. We do not have all the team members, especially those team members work in fab, have their personal, individual computer. However, we do set up some computer that they can commonly share in the rest area. That's one of the channel they can just learn from the message, get the message. And the second, we also set up very big TV in the canteen, the place that all the team members will go to, no matter you are shift team member or non-shift team member. Then we will continuously to play the video and the message on the big TV so that make sure everyone can see it. I think that's the two way we do in addition to the town hall meeting. And I think the town hall meeting is for all the team members, and but for shift team member, they may not able to attend. So that we also arrange the night shift team member town hall meeting and the day shift team member town hall meeting and regular shift team member. Make sure we can cover all the team member. If they can attend, they can choose one of it to attend. And the second question about the, because just as what I mentioned, our footprint is located in 17 countries. It's including, I cannot memorize all the 17, but it's all around the world. Definitely, every country has different focus and different culture for the DEI they need to address. But when I start promoting the DEI in Taiwan, okay, one thing I noticed is at the beginning, I think it's quite easy that team member understand. Maybe, for example, in US, there is racial issue, there's a black white issue, but in Taiwan, no one will say we have DEI issue. For example, at the beginning when we start to promote gender equity, even our female team member, they share with me, I don't feel we are underrepresented because from the environment we grow up and the opportunity we can get, it is equal, it's nothing different. But when we further to deep dive, we think there's still some area that we can work on. For example, our female team member, they just like the stereotype mentioned before by other guest speaker, there are some stereotype there. Okay, for example, female team member will think they should be the main family caregiver. Okay, or they don't think because they are the main family caregiver, so they don't think it's suitable for them to take a leadership role because they think the leadership role will occupy more their time. Something like that. So the classes actually is classes seating is actually set by our own team member. So the difference is maybe in other country they already put this as an agenda, but from our team member in Taiwan at the beginning, they don't think it's an issue. However, when we deep dive, there's an issue, so that we need to gradually inspire and create the awareness from them, and they can start to see, oh yes, I can get more from this, or I can do better if I give up this kind of stereotype. And the second, I think Taiwanese is more humble and don't like to speak up. Is a little bit different from like team member in US or team member in India or in Singapore. So we need to encourage them to speak out what they observe, and so that we can know more from team members' voice, and then put it as a focus to work on. It's different from the countries that I just mentioned. There are team members in those countries, most of them are eager to speak out, so that you can solicit or collect a lot of information or opinion directly. However, here we need to push more or provide more encouragement so that we can hear their real voice.
I've seen some of that as well. I think one of the things that is different about Taiwan versus some of the other markets that I've worked in or my team is in is it's a relatively homogenous yet also progressive and safe society. Our marketing team's diversity strategy is Beitongnan within Taiwan, so it's not a whole lot of diversity there. But I'll break out a little more Chinese. One of the things I've noticed as a foreigner coming into the Taiwan subsidiary, but still a Taiwan subsidiary of a company, is how very open people are. Kaixing, people are very open and inclusive. And I think that I work with companies and individuals across pretty much every market in East Asia and Asia Pacific. And unique among them is the openness, the spirit of hard work, togetherness that I see in Taiwan. And that's something I've known or appreciated directly or indirectly for 20 years now, but have also come to value and treasure within Taiwan. And at the same time, I think that there are, because we live in this relatively progressive bubble, and where I lived in the US was similar. I think we need to also acknowledge that there are challenges out there. There are either latent challenges around gender representation, even with a woman president, a woman Minister of Economic Affairs, there are still lack of role models and gender biases, societal biases, that, as I mentioned earlier, one of my pet peeves is you can't put two names on a mortgage. So guess whose name is going to go on the mortgage 99% of the time for the first home that the couple buys? And that in and itself creates a, you know, if my daughter gets married in Taiwan, if she marries a man and gets married in Taiwan and buys a house, and that law is still there, that's going to create, unless it's her name first, which actually I would advocate for, but that's going to create a strong kind of current to push against. I will say that compared to some of the other societies where I work, Taiwan is much more inclusive. We have seen, however, that technology can help. Just a little plug, we released a live translated captions feature for Teams recently. And so when I do meetings in Japan, even when they do meetings in Microsoft Japan, they have translators because they're foreigners in the Microsoft Japan executive staff. And now we've used AI to automate that so you can bring that into a meeting. And I hope that will also improve diversity and inclusion among either in markets where there are multiple languages or when there's diverse voices from outside those markets.
So you know, as the rule of thumb of startups to succeed faster, the answer is to fail faster. So startups has this kind of habit of deliver early and deliver frequently. So whenever they can, they have this minimum viable product they will push to the market and listen to the user feedback. So we have this mindset of collecting user data to optimize the product. This also applies to how we create a DEIA friendly environment. We collect all the data. We not only talk but also listen. So we have this principle of thoughtful over communication. So it's not only communicate frequently, but also you stand in other people's shoes, because like Jessie also mentioned, young girls will never understand how working mom suffers until she becomes one. So always listen to the other people's feedback is really key.
Just real quick, I think echoing what Jessie said, I think our biggest challenge as we bring in more diverse colleagues onto our team is to get the Taiwanese colleagues actually to speak up more and to communicate more, especially with now us having colleagues who are working from home in other parts of the country, parts of the world, to really speak up and be more curious and engage in friendships that are developing digitally rather than in the same office. That's our challenge.
I don't have my All right, so got a lot of great questions in from the crowd. I guess we can all see the questions here, and so this first one about how do you respond to leadership who says we just hire or promote the best person for the job, regardless of race or gender? And that's a question we get. I'm not a hiring manager at the State Department, but I think we just finished our annual recruitment. We get that question, I'm sure, in different ways. From companies, you might get that from startups, maybe the companies that apply to get those funding opportunities. So I was wondering, in any particular order, if anyone has a response to this first question about, how do you actually do that? Maybe I'll interpret it a little bit more as, are there ways in your hiring process or selection process that you can sort of blindly listen to or select the best person for the job?
Maybe I can share some of the practice in Micron. Yes, we do just eliminate those non-job related information when submit the resume to our leaders, because we think the inclusive hiring starting from selection, so that we want leaders only focus on those information that's really related to job itself. So I think for this statement, we just hire or promote the best person of the job, regardless of race or gender. That's what we are doing. So from the hiring perspective, as just what I share, we're starting from the very beginning, from the resume. And during the interview, not just the hiring manager will join the interview, we will also make sure there's one underrepresented team member join the interview. The purpose of this underrepresented join the interview is to make sure there's no bias question has been asked during the interview. So it's kind of reminding. And this also implement to our talent review process. So during the talent review process, we have a role called inclusive advocate. Okay, that means this inclusive advocate need to join the talent review section when listen to leaders' discussion. When they discuss this team members' rating, is only make sure it's only focused on the performance and the contribution, nothing to do with the gender itself. Okay, and or the other underrepresented. And after the promotion and the performance rating, we usually will have a sanity check to see if our gender or our underrepresented receive, the ratio has difference from the overall or the non-underrepresented. That's what we are doing in Micro.
So, I see that statement, I hear that statement. I think it's a bit of a shield that people hide behind. One of the challenges is if you're looking at diversity and inclusion at the point of promoting somebody, you are so far downstream from any systematic biases in society and culture that it's futile. And so some of the things that we do, and I personally advocate and support financially, are investing in recruiting from universities that are, for example, in the US, there are traditional black colleges, so we have special recruitments around that. We invest in technology empowerment programs for girls in junior high school and high school and college for computer science. The more upstream we can get in terms of encouraging diversity and inclusion, encouraging development of talent, the easier it's going to be to have a conversation about promoting the best person and not have to, worry about your D&I stats when you're so far downstream. Two things I do as a hiring manager. When we're recruiting for a position, I ensure that we have a diverse slate of candidates. So I will make sure that I actively solicit and screen resumes from people who represent, depending on the market, diversity means different things, but make sure that I'm overcoming my own selection biases against, US colleges and people who worked at US tech companies and look and sound like me, and make sure that I'm overcoming that. And then when I have somebody, a diverse candidate on an interview, I make sure that at least one or two of their interviewers are similarly diverse so that it creates a sense of inclusion and belonging, and I see, if I can see myself in somebody more senior in the company, I'll have a better interview. I'll have a more satisfying interview. I'll probably do better in the interview, and I'll be more likely to join the company as a result. This also applies not just to the traditional metrics for diversity, but I did a hiring loop about a year ago for somebody, and if we always just hire the best person, we're going to have a lot of people who are very, very similar in terms of their work styles. A lot of type A people who are really hard charging, and we had a team, we had a bunch of folks like that. So we deliberately targeted, we were looking at two candidates who were roughly equal on paper. And I was talking to the hiring manager who worked for me. And I said, let's choose the second candidate who represents a different style, perspective, work style. Happen to also check, represent one of the underrepresented categories on the team, but that wasn't the driving factor. The driving factor was creating a diverse style of engagement and kind of communication on the team. And that paid off tremendously. Because there's tension, but there's also really good creativity and good co-learning that comes from having those diverse perspectives.
So if you're talking about efforts, as a registered company, we actually benefit from its small size. So believe it or not, we actually do everything together. So when we recruit new hires, it's a full house people interview. And when we recruit startups for the accelerator program, we also, the interview will be done by, again, 25 members at Everest, of Everest. And when we do our investment committee, we also have all members from Everest together. So, every kind of this kind of interview or filtering process, it's we have people from of all different kinds of social settings get represented. Thank you.
Okay, all right, I think we're getting close to time, but maybe we can, okay, this is kind of an interesting one about migrant labor. It probably doesn't, well, how about maybe the larger companies could talk about that one, and then the data, what kind of data information do you suggest HR collect to actually find the suitable DEIA plans from a corporate level? So we'll go to that one first, and then does any company here really have migrant labor? Probably, okay, probably not one. But how about the data question? Is there a way that you could address that? We could talk about values, and it's very nice sounding, but I think you have real data from around the world in several of these companies here.
I think with regard to talent topic, okay, of course we talk about how you can attract, develop, and retain. So basically in Micron, our DEI, the metrics that we will use to measure our DEI, including the percentage of underrepresented we hire during our whole year hiring, okay? And the second is how many of your underrepresented being promoted during the year. That means how we develop our team member, okay? And the retention, we use attrition. If our underrepresented attrition is better than non-underrepresented. And in our engage survey, we also has one of the section we call inclusion index. There are several questions to ask about team member. How do they feel? Do they feel they are respected? Do they feel they are inclusive in the environment? Something like that. So that inclusive index is also one of the DEI metrics that we use in Micron. Yeah, that's for references.
I can't speak on behalf of HR. I will say that we have our D&I report online. We just published it last week. It's at aka.ms/DI report. And I think we track similar metrics. There's a fair amount of sensitivity around how we track and report those, so I defer to that report. The one thing I will say as an important signal is, what, as you were saying, Jesse, what the employees are telling us. And some of that is in our we do it biannually, our employee signal survey. That can also just be in conversations with employees. How well do they feel included and represented? What do they feel about the social agenda for the company? I think those are not so much quantitative data, but good qualitative feedback to listen to.
Well, we've got a lot, too many questions for the time we have left, but I will maybe bring it to a close here for the panel. Just like to thank you all for really providing your diverse opinions and experiences and lessons for all of us. I've learned so much today, and how we can whatever our line of work is, these are things that we can bring to the team, and I hope that you all have also benefited from this, and to our audience online. And at this point, I'd just like to invite up our Cultural Affairs Officer, Julianne, to offer some closing remarks, and then you all are free to go.
Hi, as Pat said, my name is Julianne. I'm a Cultural Affairs Officer. I'm a Cultural Affairs Officer at AIT, and I'm also the incoming co-chair of the AIT DEIA Council. And I just wanted to first, of course, thank our panelists for such an engaging discussion. I think we all learned a lot and heard ideas that we can all integrate into our own workplace and into our lives. Thank you also to the participants for all your questions and for taking the time really to listen and to learn. This is an ongoing work in progress for all of us, and I think we're all learning as we go. This forum itself, I think, is an excellent example of how we can all benefit from listening to diverse voices. And it was really great to hear the honest and really genuine opinions from our panelists. I wanted just to highlight a few of the takeaways that I got. And I heard the word respect over and over and over, as well as curiosity, transparency. And I think these are all values that we need to incorporate into our work. Hugh, of course, talked about the lessons we can learn from sports, working as a team, learning from failure, and respect as the basis of everything that we do. From Jesse, I heard that DEIA should not just be a single policy, but really a culture-shaping process. And I think that's really important to remember. We heard from Dan about how DEIA is integrated into the mission statement of Microsoft and the focus on ensuring creation of inclusive technology. We heard about envisioning an internet of the future that empowers everyone, and from Jay about really how this can be a grassroots bottom-up process as well as a top-down process. And I just think it's really great to see all these companies and organizations that are prioritizing DEIA, putting resources, whether it's financial or human, towards advancing these goals and in creating more diverse workplaces. This shows, I think, that DEIA is being seen not just as an add-on or an extracurricular, but really a core part of our work, and something that needs to be pursued wholeheartedly. And I want to close just with the idea that as more and more leaders, such as those represented here in companies, increasingly invest and devote energy towards DEIA, we have an incredible opportunity to seize on this momentum. Like in this moment, a lot of attention is being focused on this, and we can really take that momentum and really drive change in our lives and in our workplaces. So thank you all, and you're free to go.
Thank you, Julian, and all the speakers and panelists today for joining us and sharing with us a very diverse aspect. On your way out, please don't forget your belonging, and if you have extra time, please help us to fill this post-event survey. On your way out, we also prepare refreshment box outside. You can take one as you're leaving. Thank you, everyone, for coming here on a rainy day. We appreciate your participation.
To want to stick their chest out and be proud of being Taiwanese. 我是戴伟斯，我是戴王郎。
来自 Sunshine State， 但那里并不太平，因为我的hood治安从来都不太行。拿着篮球 ，trying to stay away from troubles，work on his game， 就算有的时候 struggles， 基本上 no days off。那是他离开的门票，要理想背景，马丁路德的梦也曾有人笑。他能跑能跳，但因他的肤色，什么难听的称号都有人叫。无法改变这个地方，起码不被改变。对家庭心存感谢，但坏条子心存歹念。你也看过他们嘴脸，拿着枪对人威胁。他们说黑人是乱源，对社会造成危险。大学毕业，决定出国去打直篮，但怎么也摆脱不掉糟糕的治安。安身立命之处在哪？他寻找港湾，决定下个目的地，他飞往台湾。第17个英文字母，那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。第17个英文字母，那是第17个英文字母，它是第17个英文字母 ，Capital Q。
我是戴维斯，我是戴王郎。
爱上这个小岛，因为人们尊重彼此。爱上这个小岛，少有肤色的歧视。当外援帮球队赢得冠军，不止一次，他不再感到迷失，不再因外貌被敌视。一份归属感，规划台湾是他的意思。2013亚锦赛国家队写入。